What's going on, everybody? It is TripleCrown24 back today, and I'm here to tell you we're in a buyer's market. You might see some YouTube video titles that say sports cards are going to zero. These cards have crashed 45%. Dealers are clueless. Dealers aren't keeping up with the times. These sports cards are going to continue to fall. Panic sell. Maybe a little bit of truth to some of those statements. I think a lot of it is hyperbole, though. But facts are facts. It is a buyer's market and cards are down. This past weekend, I saw some cards crash hard in the last month to month and a half, and really kind of shocking drops. I mean, some of these are cards of players that have actually played pretty well and are some of the more popular ones at shows. When your Trevor Lawrences are dipping and your Joe Burrows are dipping, and these teams have been on winning streaks now, it's kind of like, what is going on here? And it's easy to kind of take a look at that and have a mentality that the sky is falling and things are about to get bad. And yeah, for some cards, things are about to get bad. And what you're seeing right now is probably here to stay. I think in some cases, it's not necessarily a correction, as we like to say, but rather an adjustment. You see a lot of people adjusting their spending habits because of the economy. You see a lot of people adjusting their collecting habits for whatever reason. Maybe their taste has changed. Maybe they kind of didn't know what they wanted to collect when they first started out, and now they've kind of found their own path. They know what they personally like, not what someone else told them to like, and they're kind of carving their own way. Maybe they've lost passion for something, or they feel like they got burned by a certain player and they want to move on to something new. I know that I've worn many different hats as a collector over the years. If you watch my channel for any period of time, you'll know what they are, and it's well documented. But as times change, you're gonna have to go with it and adjust to the market accordingly. But my adjustments that I'm personally making right now are not a one size fits all. I go card by card kind of and make a determination of when it's time to let go. And that's really what I want to focus on in today's video is kind of how I am tackling this down market, so to speak, or this buyer's market as someone who is a seller and pretty much in a position of disadvantage right now, and kind of how I'm turning that into my advantage. Because believe it or not, October 2023 is probably a top 5 sales month for me since I started doing this now 4 years ago, which I think to me, I'm not here to, pat myself on the back or pump myself up here, but I'm really paying attention to what is working right now because if I'm having that kind of success in this kind of climate, then it kind of tells me to keep on track of what I'm doing. And I've kind of found a groove, so to speak, and I'm gonna ride that momentum as long as I can. Let me show off some cards and tell you what I mean. Start with the Sun God. He's my current favorite Detroit sports player. Yes, it does feel very weird saying that. I'm still getting used to thinking that Miggy is no longer an active player, but one of one gold laser here. I have no problem telling you what I paid for this. It was $290. And look, a box of this stuff cost $300. The 2021 Phoenix H2. If you pulled this from a box of that, you'd probably be pretty happy. I mean, it's a one of one of pretty good player from his draft class, probably say a top 5 player in that class. Is that too bold to say right now? Maybe it is, but extremely talented young receiver and absolutely loved in Detroit among my fellow Lions fans. Shout out Alex Eloy. You know who you are. But I marked this up a little bit, and it's one that I just don't mind holding on to. It's a one on one, so I'm not going to get comp police too badly on it. I mean, there will be people who try to tell me that, well, the Jalen Waddle sold for this, or the Diami Brown in a PSA 9 sold for this. To me, it's kind of apples and oranges. Would I take that into consideration? Yeah, absolutely. Did I look up what various Amon-Ra 101s have sold for when I went to go buy this card? Absolutely. And I still was able to make that decision that at 290, I'm comfortable either keeping it at that number or thinking that eventually I will get more for it. And with it being a Monra, I have a little bit of a bias, of course. I mean, he's one of those guys. I bought this card for my collection. This is the first non-set card I bought for my collection since I stopped super collecting in late 2021. If that tells you how much I like the dude, or if that doesn't tell you how much I like the dude, I don't know what will. But let me show you some more cards here. There's actually been some cards that I have paid over the last comp for. And that's kind of a taboo thing in this day and age, right? People always want to buy at 80%, 70%, or even less than that. But it's been said time and time again, if everybody buys at 80%, everything will eventually go to zero or as close to zero as possible. Because, I mean, you get what I mean. But here's a card that I paid above what the last sale was on it. This was over the weekend at the show that I went to. It's a Waddle tie-dye prism from Select, and this is the field level, which is the most sought after level in Select. And I don't do too much with Select typically, but when I think of this product, there's a couple of things that usually come to mind in terms of the different levels that they have. The field levels come to mind, and then the parallels that are kind of exclusive to Select. So really, your tie-dye parallels, you don't really see tie-dye in many other products. Prism did it for a couple years, I think in like 14 and 15, but that's no longer a thing. It's a Select thing, the tie-dyes, and they're always numbered the same out of 25. And also the animal prints. I'm not as huge of a fan of them, especially because I don't really know what the print run is on them. I think the tiger stripes are cool. If I got like a tiger stripe of a Bengals player or a Tigers player, I would think that's pretty cool and I would buy that. But generally speaking, I like a lot of the numbered stuff, and I like these tie dyes here. Now, the last sale on this card was $76, and I paid $100 for it. Again, I have no problem telling you that. And sure enough, I was joking with one of my buddies about this. I told him, like, look, I'm going to tell you right now, if I go post this for sale somewhere, I'm going to get someone who tells me the last one did 76, I'll offer you 60. And sure enough, the very first time I posted that, I got two messages saying that exact same thing, like clockwork. It's just too predictable at times. And no, I did not sell them for 80% of the last sale. Why did I do that? Well, it kind of becomes decision time, right? If there were 4 sales of this consecutively that were all below $100, then I would much more strongly consider that offer. If this was the premier level of this card, I would probably consider this offer. If this was one of those die cuts, I'd absolutely be looking very strongly at that offer and just taking the loss and moving on. But this is the field level tie dye out of 25. And some people might say, oh, well, it's all modern junk, anyways. It's not numbered to, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Okay, that's fine. But I know that I have a lot of people who do like the tie dyes, and I see a lot of people buying them up. And this is kind of up there in terms of the hierarchy of chromium cards in the NFL landscape today. Select field levels are king and select, and the tie dyes are up there among the most popular parallels. I'd argue that a lot of people are probably even prefer them over the greens that are out of 5. Just because it's lower number doesn't necessarily mean it's more desirable. Sometimes it's a variety of factors. And that's kind of what I evaluated this Waddle with, is that the chances that I would find one again at that number of 76 bucks, I didn't think I was going to. And I wanted to get this card and secure this card because I think it's a really solid card. And you can see what I put it out at. And you might think I'm out of my mind for asking double what the last sale was. Well, mine is the cheapest priced one out there right now. It's cheaper than all the 10s that are out there. It's cheaper than all the 9s that are out there. And it's cheaper than all of the raws that are out there, with one exception. That one exception is the one that is currently up at auction, which, mind you, is at $81 and ends in about 7 hours, which is, again, above the last sale of a 9. And generally speaking, a lot of 9s usually sell for more than a raw. We'll see where that one ends. I've got it on my watch list. I'm not going to bid on it because I don't need 2 of them, but I am going to keep my eye on it and see what it goes for, and maybe I'll reevaluate it based on what that one sells for. I'm not going to raise my price, but I might lower it slightly. But again, it kind of came down to, I couldn't just go based off of that last sale. I saw that that sale was less than half of what this card has ever sold for in a 9 before, and figured it would be a good opportunity to get it at 100, because that would still be, to my knowledge, the second lowest sale of it so far. And I think that it's worth more than that. So that was my evaluation on it. And sometimes my gut is wrong. I'll give you an example of it. This is one that I think I missed on. Look, I like the ices a lot. Goes without saying. Here's another one here. It goes without saying. I saw this one posted up on Blowout and I snagged it because I get a lot of people asking for Steelers. It's a Friar Move out of 22, PSA 10 from Contenders Optic. And I paid 65 for this one. And I think I overpaid a little bit. I mean, I've had a lot of people tell me that they think it's worth about 50 to 60 bucks. Probably in hindsight, yeah, they were right. I didn't really take into consideration the entire market. I didn't really look at the raw sales on it. Kind of just picked and chose certain parallels and stuff and kind of figured what I thought I could realistically get for this card. And I thought at $100, it might be a little bit high, but I think that someone would offer 80 and I would take 80 for it. And it would, I'd go up 15 on it. I don't know if that's going to be the case. If I broke even, I'd be pretty happy at this point in this card. I've only had it for, I don't know, maybe 4 days in my possession, so I'm not too concerned about it. The guy's on IR. Again, it's a tight end. I'm going to show you a tight end card here in a moment. But again, I miss on some of these things too. This was a card that I had the wrong read on it, and again, I like the cracked ices, and it's fine. I don't bat 1,000, but there you go. That's an example where I read it wrong. Let me keep going on here. Another card that I paid above the last sale on. Corbin Carroll Blue Refractor, first Bowman Chrome from 2019 draft. And there's a lot of parallels in Bowman these days, like the lunar crater things. I try not to get involved with those. If you see me with one of those, it's because it came in a package deal or it was just absurdly cheap, or even I had to say, okay, I can't let this one go. But Carroll right now, he is among the hottest names in the baseball side of the hobby. The Diamondbacks are to go out to win the World Series. They're down 2-1 right now as of recording. I think that might only elevate this even more, but regardless, he had a phenomenal season. I think even in a different year, you could put him in the MVP discussion. He just happened to have his technical rookie season here during a year where someone hit 40 home runs and stole 70 bases, and then Mookie Betts played out of his damn mind in the second half of the year. But in a normal year, he might actually get some more consideration for MVP with how good he's been. And the blue parallels, blue refractors, they're kind of what I like to call meat and potatoes parallels. They're very desirable. You'll a lot of times see blue refractors outsell even some of the lower numbered ones like greens, more on green parallels here in a moment. But when you see something like this is the type of card that doesn't pop up too often. And as more time goes on and more people actually want to collect Corbin Carroll, more of these kind of go into the abyss. They go into the black hole where you're not going to see them available for sale. It's not going to be someone like me who is going to put it back out there on the market. It's going to be someone who wants to keep it. And when that happens, that's one less one you have to choose from. Mine is priced above what the last sale was because that was back in mid-August. And I feel that times have changed since then. And I mean, the Diamondbacks, of course, they've gone to the World Series, and he's a pretty big reason why. And the choice kind of comes down to this. So if there's no PSA 10s out there that are cheaper than what mine is right now, and you either have to choose, do you want to go after the 9? There's a 9 up for 250, and if you're cool with the 9 at that price, I say go for it. I actually think that's probably a pretty decent price. But if you want the 10, you have to wait for the next one to pop up, or you gotta just not get it if you're not willing to pay up for mine. And there are certain cards that I feel that you can do that with. If this was, say, a Chronicles parallel of something, second year card, even if it was still rookie year, then I'd be a lot more willing to let it go, especially if you want to show me recent sales. And if it makes sense to me, then yeah, I'm not going to be too hard pressed about it. But on the more quality cards like this, I'm kind of using this as an opportunity right now for those who are panicking or those who want to sell the price their cards slightly above whatever the last sale is to kind of use that to my advantage and be able to buy right now because again, you're never guaranteed to get a card at whatever the last sale price was, and you're not entitled to it at that price. I'm not entitled to it at that price. Nobody's entitled to it at that price. But that's why I pay up on some of these cards is because I'm willing to take those chances, and if it means I have to hold it for some period of time, then I will. If it means that I don't put it out at shows for an entire quarter of the year, okay, I'll hold on to it. It's not that big of a deal. I have plenty of cards to sell that will keep the lights on in here. Let me show off a couple more. I don't always price it above the last sale as well. These two actually have priced below. And part of it is because I bought these in a bundle deal for what was given to me at what I like to call the Godfather offer. It was an offer too good to refuse, is how I put it. And these came with 10 of her Pokemon cards. I've sold 8 of those 10 Pokemon cards. And based on where I've sold those at, I'm kind of right around where I was hoping to be on this deal in terms of where I'm at on these 2 cards. And because of that, it opens up my options a little bit. I'm willing to maybe trade on some of these things a little bit more, uh, be a little bit more liberal with my trading on these, or perhaps take a little bit less than maybe I was willing to initially. That kinda happened with this Micah Parsons. I think I started this thing off at 325 sticker, and then I've dropped it down here to 280. Last sale on this one was 300 bucks. And it's a purple pulsar. It's not the most desired parallel out there. It's not up there with a gold or a blue or anything like that, or a 101. But I think it's still a good looking card, and it's one of those that it just doesn't come up often. So if someone wants to play whatever the last sale game was, then they'll probably be pretty happy to see this one below that. But I'm not too attached to this one. I think Micah Parsons is one of the best players in football, not even one of the best defensive players, just flat out one of the best players in football. I like him a lot. I watched him when he was at Penn State, and he's an absolute stud. And I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. Respect the heck out of him. This guy, I think he's a really solid player, but they just don't use him. I feel like whenever a tight end gets drafted in the top 10, they're never used properly with their first team. They usually end up going somewhere else. Take that as a Lions fan when we had Eric Ebron and TJ Hawkinson, and then they go on to make the Pro Bowl with their new teams. Probably the same thing will happen with Kyle Pitts. I imagine he'll get into an offense where they actually try to throw the ball to him, and he'll be a Pro Bowler. But this is a gold downtown, and I feel that this is one of those cards that is kind of up there in the hobby hierarchy. Downtowns and kabooms are the kings of the castle among the case hit world, up there with the color blasts as well. And because of that, I mean, I have people trying to buy downtowns from me at 80% of the last sale all the time, and just not willing to sell them for that price because everybody wants them at that price. That's why they're so desired, because they're usually pretty easy sells. Now, on a gold like this of a pretty unproven guy for the price that it's at, a little bit of a tougher sale. But again, it was at a price where I felt like I could take those risks on it. Was I nervous about buying it? Heck yes, and it will be kind of a relief when when it's gone, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean I'm in a rush to get rid of it. That doesn't mean that I'm not willing to lose on it or even lose big on it. I kind of insulated myself to the point where I don't think I'll lose big unless something unforeseen happens. But when you're able to kind of insulate yourself on those kind of deals, then it will help out. So that's what I mean is that there are a lot of people right now who are selling below whatever the last sale is because they feel that they have to do that. And in some cases, you might have to on certain cards. If it's something that's not as desirable, like for example, here I'm trying to find a card that I have that would kind of fall into what I'm talking about here. I guess I'll just pull this one back out. The Pat Fryermuth. Again, I get asked for Steelers a lot, but this guy isn't necessarily the most popular guy out there, or even the Kyle Pitts. I'm probably not going to uh, get whatever the last sale was on some of these cards here, and that's okay. I don't have to, and I'm much more willing to negotiate on these 2 cards than I would be this one or this one, because I have a lot more confidence in some cards compared to the other ones. And I know what is down right now and kind of what my gut tells me is uh is here to stay and what is not here to stay. That's kind of one of the things that I always tell people is to trust your gut. You know, comps are great and everything. You can look at them all you want to, but at the end of the day, they reflect a market that was rather than the market that is in a lot of cases. On base stuff, yeah, they pretty much tell you the story. There's no need for any more explanation than that. But on some of the things that are a little bit more difficult to find, your lower numbered stuff, your more desired cards, it can be a good baseline. Of course, you don't want to pay an all-time high for something unless you absolutely have to, but you're not also guaranteed to get it for the lowest price it's ever sold for. Sometimes you have to pay up a little bit, but it can be worth it. That's kind of my take on what I'm doing right now. It's kind of how I see it. You can let me know if I'm an idiot down in the comments down below, or if maybe you agree with some of the things I said. But until next time, take care, stay safe, be kind.